Fourier transform of derivatives. This properties I already finished in offline classes, but online class I want to put stop by today itself, right? So you just follow the things, right? If you have any doubt, I already told you, you are free to ask, right? Through GC or through Google Classroom to me at any time, right? Or if possible, if colleges are there, I will be there in the college, right? If you come and you can ask the doubts, no problem, right? So we finished up to this in the last class. So now I continue the sixth property of Fourier transform, that is Fourier transform of derivatives, right? So what is Fourier transform of derivatives? Usually it is derivative, but it is derivatives. That is, so far we know Fourier transform of f of x, that we have a definition like this. Whenever you evaluate this integral, that gives you the Fourier transform of the function f of x, that is a function of s. Now we are going to study about what is Fourier transform of f dash of x. For example, suppose if you know Fourier transform of f of x, suppose f of x is sine x. So you know Fourier transform of sine x, right? And if you want to know Fourier transform of f dash of x means if f of x is sine x, then f dash of x will be cos x. Then f dash of x will be cos x, right? That is also a function of x. So by just knowing the Fourier transform of sine x, how to find the Fourier transform of cos x? Since sin x, the derivative of sin x is cos x. For just for example, I'm giving this, but this can be extended to any bigger functions, because for smaller functions you can able to find Fourier transform of sin x and cos x in easily manner. But there are certain functions for which for finding the Fourier transform of f of x is here, but f dash of x is little bit tougher, right? Because f dash of x does not exist at certain places. So in that case, this type of properties will help you to find the Fourier transform of f dash of x, right? So that is the idea behind that property. But what is the statement says? The statement says if Fourier transform of f of x is equals to f of s, then the derivative f dash of x should be continuous and it should be absolutely integrable, right? So I will tell you what is the meaning of continuous and absolutely integrable, right? So not only the function f of x is continuous, the function f dash of x, what are the derivatives also should be continuous, and possibly even it is piecewise continuous, still it will work, right? And absolutely integrable, this only you should know, right? What is meaning of absolutely integrable? Absolutely integrable means if integral f of x dx exist means if you are able to integrate f of x, then that is meaning, that is the meaning of f of x is integrable. For any interval, if you are able to integrate f of x, then it is called f of x is integrable. But if you are able to integrate the magnitude of f of x, that is modulus of f of x, otherwise it is called as absolute value of f of x. What is mod of f of x? Suppose if f of x is a function is equals to x, a general function f of x equals to x, then modulus of f of x, modulus of f of x is nothing but mod x. So now f of x is different from mod of f of x, right? So if f of x equal to x, that means, right, then mod of f of x means mod x, right? So this is for any function. If it is cos x means it's mod cos x, if it is log x means mod log x. But what is the difference between f of x and f dash of x, right? For any value of x, right, f of x can take the value a positive value or a negative value. Suppose for f of 2 is 2. Similarly, f of minus 2 is minus 2, right? But whenever you take the modulus of a function, whenever if you take a modulus of a function, whatever the value of x, because x is a real number, you know, right? But mod of f of x is always a positive number. For example, here if you take 2, then mod of f of 2 is nothing but mod 2, because by definition mod of f of x is mod x, so mod of f of 2 is mod 2. You know mod 2 is 2 only, right? But mod of f of minus 2, so when x is negative, then x is negative, f of minus 2. According to the definition, modulus of f of x is modulus of x, so mod of minus 2, but mod of minus 2 is still plus 2. So whenever you take the modulus sign, the function value is always a positive one. Function value is always a positive one. So integrating means adding all the positive values, right? Also should have some finite number. That is the meaning of integrable. Integrable means whenever you integrate a function, integral of a function is nothing but finding the area under the graph, finding the area under the curve. That area should be a finite area. That is the meaning of integrable. Absolutely integrable means, right, whenever you take the area, suppose you take the area like this, right, in mod x, area is look like this in a V shape. Whenever you take area, right, from minus a to a, that f of x value is always in the positive axis. This is f of x positive, this is f of x negative, this is x positive, this is x negative. So whenever x is positive or negative, but if f of x is always positive, then it is a even function and it takes only the positive values of the function, right? But anyway, this is only for the statement, right? Even if you're not able to understand what is absolutely integrable, no problem. When I'm doing the work out the problems, you will only work out the integration part, right? So just for understanding purpose, I'm telling all these things, right? So we come to the statement of the theorem. The theorem statement says Fourier transform of f dash of x is equals to minus I times s into f of s. That meaning is, if you want to find Fourier transform of f dash of x, find Fourier transform of f of x, I'll multiply with minus is. I'll multiply with minus is. That gives you the Fourier transform of f dash of x. How? Here we see the proof. Here we will see the proof. So by definition, Fourier transform of f dash of x can be defined as that 1 by root 2 pi. This I already told you. Different authors use different notations, right? Some people put 1 by root 2 pi in both Fourier transform as well as inverse Fourier transform, and some people put nothing in the Fourier transform definition and putting 1 by 2 pi in the inverse Fourier transform definition. But both are mathematically correct, right? So here this author taking 1 by root 2 pi in the Fourier transform definition itself. But that's no problem. That is only a constant part. The main thing you have to concentrate is here, right? So by definition, it is f dash of x e power isx dx. So you may ask, in offline classes, I put minus sign here, and then in inverse transform, I put plus sign. But here in this author, they use plus sign in the Fourier transform and minus sign in the inverse Fourier transform. But again, I'm telling both are mathematically correct, because both Fourier transform and inverse Fourier transform are a pair of formulas. So when you apply Fourier transform and get back to the original function, automatically this type of things will adjust itself. So here e power plus ix 6 is mathematically correct, no problem, right? So now we have f dash of x and e power isx dx. Now what you have to do, no? You have to take u equals to very carefully e power isx, and v is equals to just your uv formula. V is equals to f dash of x. You may ask, why sir we take this as u and this as v? Because what we need f of x, but what we there in the part, it is f dash of x. So if you want to transform f dash of x into f of x, what you have to do? We have to integrate it. Because if we take u equals to f dash of x, then u dash become f double dash of x. But what we need a relation between f dash of x and f of x, right? So that we are taking u equals to e power isx and v equals to f dash of x. Then we can easily use u dv formula. So since u equals to e power isx, so formula is uv minus integral v du, right? So u is, right, e power isx, v is integral of this. So this is dv, sorry, this is dv. So v is f dash of x, right? dv is f dash of x dx, then v equals to f of x, right? Similarly, do is coming, okay, because, right? So now since u equals to e power isx, u equals to e power isx du is equals to e power isx. Since you are differentiating with respect to x, is is a constant, so is will come and then dx will come. So this is the formula for, suppose e power ax, differentiation of e power ax is e power ax into a. So that constant a is nothing but here is. So that only you are putting here. So this is u, right? This is v. V is f of x minus integral v du. This is v. V is f of x. Du. Du is e power isx, is and dx. Right? So once you get this,
Sir, morning, sir.
good morning, right?
Good morning.
Right, come. Right. So since u is this and v is this, right? Then some additional information given in the statement itself, right? It says this thing is true if f of x goes to 0 when x is plus or minus infinity. Even when x goes to infinity or x goes to minus infinity, f of x goes to 0, right? Since the here the limits are plus infinity, minus infinity and plus infinity, here we have to put the minus infinity and plus infinity symbol, right? And we have to apply the limits, right? We know e power infinity is infinity, but as per the statement, f of x goes to 0 both when x is infinity as well as x is minus infinity. So both upper limit as well as the lower limit is 0 for this part. That is for this part, right? It goes to 0, right? When x is plus infinity as x is minus infinity, because the property says, right, f of x goes to 0 when x is plus or minus infinity. So hereafter we don't bother about this thing, right? We only bother about this thing, right? So here is is there, e power is x is there, f of x is there, dx is there. So here x is the variable, so is something like a constant. F of x is not a constant, it's a variable because x is there. Here also f of x is there, and e power isx is also there, which is also a function of x, which is also a function of x. So this is a function of x, this is also a function of x, but is is not a function of x, so that can be taken outside the integral. That only we have seen here. That only we have seen here. So I'm taking that is outside, minus sign is also there. So minus is taken by outside. And what are the things inside now? F of x, e power isx dx. Right. Now, what is this? By definition, this is the definition of Fourier transform. This is the definition of Fourier transform. Integral minus infinity to plus infinity, f of x, e power isx dx. So outside is minus is. So from that we come to the conclusion this Fourier transform of f dash of x can be written as minus is times Fourier transform of f of x, right? But it looks like simple. Why we study all these properties? But whenever the f of finding f dash of x from f of x is difficult for certain problems, and then finding the Fourier transform of f dash of x itself a difficult one. In that case, we can use this type of relations for difficult functions, not simple sin x cos x function, right? That I gave only for an example, right? But you can easily find Fourier transform of sin x or Fourier transform of cos x. But there are certain functions it's difficult to find the derivative, Fourier transform of its derivative. In that case, we can use this relation and we can easily find, right? And this relation is like a recurrence relation. Recurrence means you can apply it again and again, right? Suppose you see this here. Fourier transform of f dash of x is is f of s. Is f of s means that is Fourier transform of f of x. So f of x is the original function, f dash of x is the derivative function, right? Similarly, for the function f dash of x, f double dash of x is the derivative. See, f, if you differentiate f, you will get f dash. Similarly, if you differentiate f dash, what you get? You will get f double dash. So, as per the statement, whatever are there in the statement, right? What other things we are assumed in the statement, right? F of x goes to 0 when x is plus or minus infinity and f dash of x is continuous. We simply assume the same thing for the next derivatives. That is, if f double dash of x is continuous and absolutely integrable, and f of x and f dash of x goes to 0 when x goes to plus or minus infinity, right? So if you assume these two conditions, then by recurrence relation, we can similarly we can prove that Fourier transform of f double dash of x can be written as minus is times Fourier transform of f dash of x, since f double dash of x is the derivative of f dash of x. And again, so this is the meaning of recurrence, right? Again, we can apply Fourier transform of f dash of x can be written as is times Fourier transform of f of s. Fourier transform of f of x. So now this can be written as minus is comes twice, so minus is squared times Fourier transform of f of x. Fourier transform of f of x. So what it says, Fourier transform of f double dash of x can be written as minus is times square Fourier transform of f of x. The same way we can write Fourier transform of nth derivative of a function can be written as minus I s whole power n. Otherwise, minus I whole power n. Minus I is nothing but the imaginary number. I already told you I is nothing but the imaginary number. I is equivalent to root of minus 1, or I square is equals to minus 1. This is the imaginary complex number, right? Minus I the whole power n, s power n, Fourier transform of f of x. So this is the general uh, Fourier transform for the nth derivative. So that this property is called as Fourier transform of derivative. Originally it is not derivative, it is derivatives, right? So now we able to understand, right, what the Fourier transform of derivatives. Fourier transform of derivatives. The derivatives may be anything. It may be f or f dash or anything, but only thing is we have to assume this thing. It approaches zero as x tends to plus or minus infinity. Only this assumption is enough, and as well as absolutely integrable assumption is there. Using these two assumptions, we can prove this. But you may ask, sir, where is absolutely integrable? We are not at all using here, but it is there inside there. But anyway, at your level, right, detailed proof is not necessary. This itself is more than sufficient. Now, the next property is derivative of transform. The derivative of transform is, now you have seen Fourier transform of f dash of x. Now here, derivative of f capital F of s. Now previous property you have seen f dash of x, that is derivative of small f. But here you can see the derivative of capital F. Derivative of capital F. So what is the meaning of this property? Derivative of transforms. So transforms is f of s is the transform. Derivative of transform means, right, f capital F dash of s. Otherwise, it is denoted by d by ds of f of s. Similarly, nth means nth derivative, right? But what is the proof of this? Very simple. You take f of s as it is. F of s means Fourier transform definition. What is Fourier transform definition? Fourier transform definition is, this is Fourier transform of f of x. Fourier transform of f of x. That is f of s. That is equivalent to 1 by root 2 pi as per the definition. Now you differentiate both sides with respect to s. Clearly, s, not x. So both sides differentiate with respect to s. Then what happened? Left hand side it become d by ds of f of s, or it become f capital F dash of s. Capital F dash of s. Then what happened to the right hand side? In the right hand side, f of x is not a function of s, right? So if you differentiate with respect to s, it won't affect f of x, but it will affect e power isx. It will affect e power isx. So if you differentiate e power isx with respect to s, then I and x are constants. So that come out here, so that you can see here e power isx ix. Ix means, since you are differentiating with respect to s, right? So it is e power isx. Ix is a constant that comes out, right? And then dx as it is, right? So in the right hand side, even though you are differentiating both sides, but in the right hand side only this term only can be differentiable with respect to x. Sorry, yes, not x, right? And then you can see what is the change. Then you can see what is the change after the differentiation. After the differentiation with respect to s, the change is one ix is coming out, but still here dx is there. You can't take x outside, so you can take only I outside. So I comes outside and x is inside, and x multiplied with xx. X multiplied with sx. Now x f of x is like a function of x. Remember, suppose if we take f of x is cos x, f of x is cos x, then x into f of x is nothing but x into f of x is nothing but x into cos x. X into cos x, right? So again, x into cos x is again a function of x only, right? So now this can be written as Fourier transform of x into f of x. If f of x is present, you simply write Fourier transform of f of x. Now in place of f of x, x into f of x is there, so you can able to write this as Fourier transform of x into f of x. So what happened? Now differentiation of capital F of s, otherwise derivative of the transform, is equivalent to I times Fourier transform of x into f of x. So what is the meaning of this, right? If you want to find Fourier transform of x cos x, right, then simply find Fourier transform of cos x and differentiate this with respect to s one time and multiply with minus I, right? What is the meaning? If you want to find Fourier transform of x f of x or x cos x, if you want to find this, right? If you want to find this, then no need to find this again. You just find Fourier transform of f of x, Fourier transform of f of x, that you already know. Suppose if you already know Fourier transform of cos x, that is f of s, then whatever f of s you already have, differentiate that f of s one time, right, with respect to s, right, and then multiply minus I, then you will get the Fourier transform of x into cos x. Then you get the Fourier transform of x into cos x. But again, this is also a recurrence relation. You can extend this relation to the higher derivatives. That means again you can differentiate after writing like this. After writing like this, d by ds of f of s equal to I times x into f of x, or writing like this, again you can differentiate both sides with respect to x, with respect to s, then you will get d square ds, d square of ds square of f of s, that is the second derivative of capital F of s in the left hand side, and in the right hand side again you will get minus I two times, minus I two times, and again you will get one more x in the integral, one more x in the integral. So in that case, what will happen? Again the same idea, right? I becomes I square, I becomes I square, and x into x become x square. Now this can be written as Fourier transform of x square f of x, Fourier transform of x square f of x, right? But don't forget one simple thing, right? Don't forget one simple thing. Whenever I write in the other side, if it is written right with f x and f of x, it is positive. But if it goes to the other side, then become negative. How I? Because if I goes to the other side, it becomes 1 by I. It becomes 1 by I. But 1 by I can be written as 1 by I into I by I. Otherwise, I by I square, but I square is minus 1, so I by minus 1, that is minus. So 1 by I is minus I. This already is, I have, we have already discussed this, right? So when it goes this side, it becomes minus I. So for a transform of x into f of x can be written as minus I times d f of s by ds. Again the same thing, when you differentiate with respect to x one more time, that minus I goes again on the other side, so it becomes minus I the whole square. And in the left hand side we have previously x into f of x, now we have another x is also there, so it becomes x square into f of x. So in general we can write Fourier transform of x power n, that is after differentiating n times with respect to x on both sides, we'll get Fourier transform of x power n f of x can be written as minus I the whole power n, nth derivative of f of x. What is the meaning? If you want to find, suppose Fourier transform of x power 5 cos x, simply find Fourier transform of cos x and differentiate 5 times and multiply with minus I power 5, minus I power 5. That is the meaning of this property, right? So now you have seen the Fourier transform of derivative, derivative of the transform. Two things: Fourier transform of derivative is Fourier transform of f dash of x, and derivative of transform means capital F dash of s, capital F dash of s. Right, now you see one more property here. I think this property is not there when I teach in the offline classes, right? That is Fourier transform of integral of a function, Fourier transform of integral of a function, and the proof is very simple. The proof is very simple. Suppose we want to find Fourier transform of integral of f of x. What is the meaning? Very simple. You just find Fourier transform of f of x and multiply it with I and divided by s. Very simple. Suppose we know Fourier transform of cos x, but we want to find Fourier transform of integral cos x dx, right? We simply find Fourier transform of cos x and multiply it with I by s. But how the proof works? Very simple, right? So, but here you have to check the limits. Limit should be a and x, not minus infinity plus infinity, right? So you take the function a to x f of x dx. So a to x f of x dx, if you integrate this function and apply the limits, a is a constant but x is a variable. So if you apply upper limit and lower limit, again the final result will be a function of x, not a number. Since the limits are not constants, one limit is constant a, another limit is x itself, the variable itself. So again, if you integrate and substitute the limits, again you get a function of x. That function of x they taken as g of x. They just name integral of f of x dx as g of x. Just name integral of f of x dx as g of x, because integral of this again a function of x, that is represented by g of x. Now they use the ordinary fundamental theorem of calculus. So integral of f is g of x means then f of x equals to g dash of x. This we already know, right? Integral of sin is cos means, and then differentiation of cos is that minus sign, right? So if you integrate f, you will get g means, then if you differentiate g, you will get f. So that is the basic fundamental theorem of integral calculus, right? This proof no need, you just understand, right? So in place of f of x, we can write g dash of x, right? In the place of f, we can write g dash of x. But just now we have seen in the property number 6, Fourier transform of derivative of any function can be written as is f of is f of s. F of s means the derivative of that function. So here the function is g of x. So you can write is f of g of x. But what is g of x? G of x is nothing but, by definition, it is a to x f of x dx. A to x f of x dx, right? Not pi, this is x. A to x f of x dx. Printing mistake is there. It is not pi, it is x, right? So now here what they do know, they simply take the is on the other side. So this is 1 by is. So Fourier transform of integral of a function is equals to 1 by is times Fourier transform of f of x. But as I told already, 1 by I goes numerator as minus I, but already minus sign is there. So minus minus become plus. So it is I by s Fourier transform of f of x. So this is the relation between Fourier transform of integral of a function with the Fourier transform of that function. Fourier transform of integral of a function with the Fourier transform of that function, right? Okay, all these things will be helpful to you to whenever you solve problems related with this, right? Now one more property, that is the property number 9. This is called as conjugate symmetry property. Here even the name is not there, but it is called conjugate symmetry property. Right? So here they use the bar. So what is this bar represents? Minuses, you know, in place of x you put minus, so that is the negative variable. But what is this bar? The bar denotes the complex conjugate. In some book they use star, f star of x, f star, right? They use star, and some book they use bar line. But whatever it may be, it represents the complex conjugate of a function or a complex number. Suppose you take a complex number z equals to a plus ib, that is 2 plus i3 or 3 plus i2. Then z bar is nothing but a minus ib. So z bar, the complex conjugate, is nothing but wherever I present, right, that is replaced by minus I. For example, suppose f of x is x square plus e power ix plus I cos x, suppose. Then f dash of x, sorry, f bar of x, that is the complex conjugate of the function, will be x square is purely a, there's no I is there, so it's purely a real valued function. So x square as it is. And here e power ix is there. So ix means e power ix means e power ix as an expansion as cos x plus I sin x. I already told e power ix as expansion as cos x plus I sin x. So wherever I is there, you have to replace that by minus I. So e power ix becomes e power minus ix. Similarly, plus I cos x becomes minus I cos x. So this is the original function f of x. This is the complex conjugate of the function. So now here it tells the relation between the complex conjugate of a function with its Fourier transform, So what the function says, right? Statement says, if you want to find Fourier transform of complex conjugate of a function, find f of s first, change s as minus s, and then find the complex conjugate of the resulting function. Find the complex conjugate of the resulting function, right? So if you want to find Fourier transform of complex conjugate of a function, find the Fourier transform of f of x, not complex conjugate, and then change s as minus and put a complex conjugate sign, right? So this the property looks like it's very simple, but it has a lot of opportunities whenever the function is a complex valued function. Remember, functions dealing with complex valued functions is really a challenging one, right? So here the proof is very simple. right? So as far as proof is concerned, they are very simple, right? You just understand, apply it, you'll get it. So by definition, f of s can be written like this. That's the definition of Fourier transform. Then what you have to put, no, here they put minus s, so put minus here. Then if you put ss minus s, right, then here also that s becomes minus s. Here they now didn't put, but here it become minus s, right? And then they apply the conjugate two times. Then they apply the conjugate two times, right, on both sides. That is f of x conjugate and then conjugate, right? So apply conjugate two times means represents same, represents the same. So if you apply f of x applies, we don't know whether f of x is a real valued function or complex valued function, but if you apply conjugate two times, right, then the function will be same. That is, if a plus ib is the function, then a minus ib is the complex conjugate. Again, if you apply the complex conjugate one more time, it is same. But here, when you apply the complex conjugate, when you apply ss minus s, it become minus isx, become minus isx. And now if you apply a complex conjugate, that minus a become plus a, right? Here the spelling mistake is there. Here s becomes minus s, here minus s, here also s become minus s. But when you apply f of s complex conjugate twice, so here two lines are there, so there is no change in f of x, because if you apply complex conjugate two times, there is no change. But here when you apply complex conjugate one time, then what happened, right? E power I become minus a become e power plus I, so that e power isx dx. And then finally, so here complex conjugate apply two times, so that it won't affect the left hand side. But if you apply in the third time only one time, then this side and this side also you have to apply, right? So if you apply complex conjugate on one side two times, that won't change, that won't be change in the left hand side. But if you apply the third time, right, then that will affect the left hand side. So that left hand side is minus f dash of s, and here it will be like this. Now as I told already, right, by applying f dash of x two times, right, this e power isx, no change, because one time it becomes s become minus s, and then it become minus a become plus I. But if you apply the third time, it will affect f of x, it will affect the f of x, right? So that now you can write this as Fourier transform of f of x in place of x. They can write it as mod of f of x. They are written as mod of f of x, right? So this little bit difficult to understand, because you are not much dealing with complex conjugate functions, right? So anyway, you go through it, try to write it one or two times. Only thing is, one simple thing you should know, why why it become plus again, because it become plus again, because one time when you apply it becomes minus s, another time when you apply it become plus I, right? So first two times when you apply this, right, there will be any change, but the third time when you apply, right, this minus I become plus I, and this f of x become f of x bar, and then this gives the relation between Fourier transform of f of s, that is Fourier, that is complex conjugate of f of minus s, is equals to the Fourier transform of complex conjugate of the function f of x, right? Still, if you are not able to understand, no problem, you can at least try to write this. Whenever you come to the college, you can ask me, otherwise you can discuss with your friends about this, right? Okay, so next some 10 to 15 minutes, I just teach you the remaining two properties, that is called convolution theorem and partial identity. With that, all the properties will go over, and then next class onwards, right, that is tomorrow's class, I will do some one or two problems based on this convolution theorem and partial theorem. With that, that unit will be over, and that gives you some idea about that three units, that is partial differential equation, Fourier series, and Fourier transform. Then tomorrow I will tell you, right, how to prepare for the examinations, and in the final day again I will tell you what are the important topics you can study for the university examinations as well as the university examinations, right? So even though there are 5 units are there, right, but even if you write 6 questions, you will get out of 6 questions you can write 5 questions, you will get full 100 marks. but studying in a proper manner, that is very, very important. You have to study in a wider manner, right? In whichever manner they ask the question, you are supposed to answer the question. So don't study only one unit thoroughly and leave out all the units, right? At least study 3 units in a proper manner, so that you can ask any type of question. If you can able to answer any type of question in that particular unit, right? So now for the next some 10 to 15 minutes, right, I'll teach you the two important theorems in partials in Fourier transform, right? One is convolution theorem, another one is partials theorem. But partials theorem is already there in the Fourier series itself, right? And here also the partial theorem is there, but here the statement is a little bit different one, right? But before that, all these things based on one definition, that is called a convolution, right? What is the meaning of convolution? So I just tell you the definition of convolution and then explain the two theorems. So only 10 more minutes, you just follow me. So definition of convolution of two functions, right? So if f of x and g of x are any two functions defined in the interval minus infinity to plus infinity, defined in the interval minus infinity to plus infinity, then their convolution, otherwise convolution product, they simply call it as convolution of two function or convolution product of two functions, and it's denoted by fg f star g of x or f of x star g of x. So this is a notation to denote, right? It is not multiplication. Remember, it is not ordinary multiplication. If you simply multiply f is sin x, gx is cos x, means f into g is sin x into cos x. That is simple multiplication. But it's not a multiplication. It has some meaning. What is the meaning of that? F convolution g is defined as 1 by root 2 pi minus 50t to plus 50t, right? Since both are functions of x, here they use a common variable t, because we can't use x here, then that will confuse with f and g. So they use a common variable t, right, in place of x, and they write and they define Fourier transform, and they define convolution of f and g as f of t g of x minus t dt, right? So remember, here t is the running variable, but x is there inside. So after integrating this function, putting the limits for t, that is for minus infinity and plus infinity, finally again this will be a function of s only. Finally again this will be a function of x only, and you can find the Fourier transform of that one also, right? Again the final form will be a function of x only, some function of x, not same f. It may be some f1 of x after multiplying, of integrating all these things, right? So even if you find the Fourier transform of this entire thing, again will be f of s. Again it will be f of s, right? So f convolution g means it is an integral representation by taking f of t first, then g of x minus t dt, right? Here one simple thing is there about convolution. You can define convolution in any manner, because f and g are any two function. You can writing f convolution g or g convolution f. F convolution g means f of t g of x minus t. G convolution f means f of x minus t g of t dt. F of x minus t g of t dt. If you reverse the convolution, but whatever may be, f convolution g is same as g convolution f, right? This is a small property is there called as commutative property. It is called product is commutative. Commutative means your simple thing. If you add two things, a plus b is same as b plus a. Similarly, a into b is same as b into a. So there it is okay. But a minus b is not b minus a. 2 minus 3 is not equals to 3 minus 2. So in that case, that subtraction doesn't follow commutative property, but your addition and multiplication follows commutative property. Similarly, this star also represents some operation. The operation is nothing but the integral operation, and it is also commutative. Commutative means you can put f and g in any order, right? F of x is sin x, g of x is cos x, means sin x convolution cos x is same as cos x convolution sin x, right? That proof is there, but anyway, there is no need, right? But anyway, just explain you for 2 minutes. So what you have to do now, whatever here x minus t, you have to put as, then take t one side and take the other side. Then t equals to x minus s, then dt equals to minus ts. Now, since s equals to x minus t or t equals to x minus s, right? Here t is the running variable. So whenever you put t is minus infinity, whenever you put t is minus infinity, s becomes plus infinity, because t is minus s. Don't bother about x. S is something like a constant. So if whenever x is plus infinity, this becomes minus infinity because t equals to minus s, right? And whenever t is negative, s become positive. Whenever t is negative, s become positive. Similarly, dt equals to minus ds. dt equals to minus ds. So here, when you change the variable from t to s, what happened? The limits are changed. That means whenever t is plus infinity, s is minus infinity. Whenever t is minus infinity, s become plus infinity. So here, you just see they put minus plus infinity lower limit and minus infinity upper limit, right? Because plus whenever t is minus infinity, s become plus infinity. Whenever t is plus infinity, s become minus infinity, right? And then in place of t, you can substitute x minus s. In place of t, you can substitute x minus s. In place of x minus t, you can substitute yes. You can substitute yes. And then in place of t, and then in place of dt, you have to substitute minus ds. Right? This is g of s is as it is. F of x minus s is here, right? And dt becomes minus ds, right? And limits are changed. Now you should know one thing about the integration. If integral a to b is there, that is same as minus integral b to a. So if limits are changed, sign should be changed. So here what they are doing, no, they change the limits. Plus infinity, minus infinity become minus infinity plus infinity. So automatically our minus n is injected in the integral. And already our minus n is here also there. So this minus n cancel out and become a plus symbol. And finally we have g of s f of x minus s ds. And you can see, right? So here t is there, here s is there, whatever may be. Here t is the running variable, here s is the running variable. So here f of t, here f of x minus s, here g of x minus t, here g of s. So here t is the running variable, right? Sorry, s is the running variable. So s is here t is the running variable, t is here, right? So again, by seeing this again, as per the definition, this is a definition of convolution of g and f, because g comes first, f comes next. So f convolution g is same as g convolution f. F convolution g is same as g convolution f. So what is the meaning? Even the product of two functions is commutative in convolution product, right? So now we come to the convolution theorem, right, where we apply the convolution property. But why we need this theorem? This also called as Faltang theorem. Why we need this theorem? The important thing is, right, we already know in the very first property, Fourier transform of f of x plus g of x, or Fourier transform of f of x minus g of x can be written as Fourier transform of f of x plus Fourier transform of g of x, or Fourier transform of f of x minus Fourier transform of g of x. So whenever if the two functions are added or subtracted, here you can simply add or subtracting the corresponding transforms. But that is not there in the product. Meaning is Fourier transform of f of x into g of x, Fourier transform of f of x into g of x cannot be written as f of s into g of s. Cannot be written as f of s into g of s. That is Fourier transform of sin x into cos x cannot be written as Fourier transform of sin x into Fourier transform of cos x. But addition can be written. That is Fourier transform of sin x plus cos x. Whenever sin x is your f of x, cos x is your g of x. So Fourier transform of sin x plus cos x can be written as Fourier transform of sin x plus Fourier transform of cos x. That means finding the Fourier transform of sum of two functions is same as finding the sum of two transforms. So this is whole true for plus or minus, but not for product. So whenever f of x into sin of x, it is not equal to f of s into sin of x into f of cos x. Then what will be the product of two transforms? That is nothing but Fourier transform of convolution of two functions, nothing but the product of the transforms. We just see this result, some 2 minutes, run, we wind up for the next class, right? So just listen carefully for the next 2 minutes. By definition, what is f convolution g? I already told you f convolution g again a function of x only. Again a function of x only. So Fourier transform f of x convolution g of x is defined by the definition of Fourier transform as it is. And then again they put the definition of f and g here, right? Remember this is outer integral. Here the outer integral, the variable is x. But now again they use the inner integral for the definition of Fourier, for the definition of conversion statement or conversion definition, that is f of t g of x minus t dt, or f of u g of x minus u du, right? Now they do a simple thing, right? So there are two integrals now. One is with respect to x, that is in the outside, another with respect to t, that is inside. Now what you have to do, you have to do one nice thing, right? Interchanging the area of integration, that is taking dt outside and taking in dx inside. For that you have to change the functions accordingly, right? See here, if you want to take dt outside, all the functions only depending on t also should be taken outside. So here when once they take dt outside, they take f of t also outside the inner integral, because that is purely a function of t only, it doesn't affected by x. And you take dx as the inner function, inner integral. So when you take dx as the inner integral, that is the changing the order of integration. Then what are the functions depending on x should be written inside. So what are the functions depending on x? G of x minus t depends on x, and then e power isx is also dependent on x. So that is designed inside. That is designed inside. Now you have to do one simple thing, that is a simple property, right? Whatever you have, that you have to use it. That you have to use it, right? So for that, right, just like in the last property, you have put the substitution, right? Similarly, you have to use the substitution, right? So it is g of x minus t is purely a function of x as well as t, so that it will be in the inner integral. So that it will be in the inner integral, since g is a function of x and as well as t, so it should be inside dx as well as it should be inside dt. E power isx is purely a function of x, so that it should be inside dx. But f of t is a function of t only, so that it is outside dx but inside dt. Inside dt. Right. Now you have to do one simple thing. You have to simply put x minus t as some u. Then automatically x is equals to u plus t. X is equals to u plus t. So since if you put u equals to x minus t, x is equals to u plus t, and dx equals to du. Dx equals to du, because here t is, you are integrating with respect to x, right? So dx equals to du, right? And you are changing from x to u, right? Now here u equals to x minus t. So whenever x is minus infinity, u is also minus infinity. Whenever x is plus infinity, u is also plus infinity, because u is in the beginning, right? Here also x is also in the beginning. So what you do, x is plus infinity, u is also plus infinity. When x is minus infinity, u is also minus infinity, right? So that you have to put here, and then wherever x is there, that you have to replace by x minus t is there, that you have to replace by u, right? So in the previous thing, x minus t is there, that's replaced by q. dt is there, that is replaced by du. And here there is no change, because when x is minus infinity, u is also minus infinity. When x is plus infinity, u is also plus infinity, right? So dx become du. Now we'll see what happened to inside. What happened to inside, right? So what happened? 1 minute. Right? So in place of x minus t, you substitute u here, and then in place of x, you can substitute u plus t. So here e power is x is there, e power is x is there, that is replaced by u plus t, because hereafter there is no x. X is replaced by u. So wherever x is there, you have to substitute. So here x minus u is there, so x minus t is there, that is substituted as u using this relation. And then now in place of e power is x, you substitute is u plus t, right? Now inner integral, outer integral already t. Now inner integral from x it becomes to u, right? Now once again we do the same thing. Here e power isu is there, so u is there, so it is a function of du, so it should be kept inside. But e power ist is there, so e power ist is not a function of u, so that can be taken outside. So that is outside they taken and written here, right? So already f of t taken outside, e power ist taken outside, both are functions of t, and gu e power isu du is inside. Now you can see what is this. By definition, this is the Fourier transform of the function g. Whether it is g of x or g of u, that is immaterial, because as I told already, right? If f of x equal to x square or f of t equals to t square, both represents the same graph, the parabola, right? So t square or x square, no problem. The function representation. So here it is a function of g, right? And e power is there. And here the variable instead of x, u is used. So in general, this is the definition of Fourier transform of g of x. Similarly, when you see the other things, minus infinity to plus infinity, f of t into e power ist dt. Combine this with this. That is written here. Again, we see this is a Fourier transform of, by definition, this is a Fourier transform of the function f, right? And this integral is a Fourier transform of function g. Now, in this integral, everything is a function of u only, so that the integral itself can taken outside and e power ist taken this side. So now we have a pure function of t on one side and pure function of u on the other side. But fortunately, both represents the Fourier transform definition of f here multiplied with Fourier transform of definition g here. So that they written Fourier transform of x and Fourier transform of g of x. Don't confuse with this t and u, right? Whatever it may be, that only a representation. So here, when you write it, you can write it in a single notation called x. F is the function, right? X is the running variable. The running variable may be denoted by in any manner. It may be denoted by x, or it may be denoted by t also or u also, right? So finally, what do you get? You get Fourier transform f of x, right? This ordinary multiplication is Fourier transform of g of x. So it is f of s into g of s. So when we start, it is Fourier transform of convolution of two functions. That is f of Fourier transform of f of x star g of x that we start. But when we end, it is simply Fourier transform of f of s into g of x. So from that, we can come to the conclusion that Fourier transform of convolution of two functions is equal to product of the transforms. Fourier transform of convolution of two functions is equals to product of the transforms. So this is the idea, right? So with that, I stop today's class.